corporate sin, global sin. Sin that may not be the direct result of your personal action, but we have a claim to the sin, not necessarily by what we have done, but possibly by what we have left undone. I'm going to take the risk of reading a very long quote to you. And I'm going to ask you for your utmost concentration because it's a challenging subject. I found this article, this essay, so interesting. It took my breath away. Because as I contemplated the gospel for today, this essay was speaking into it in terms of the sin of the world. The article is written by Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, and he's the chief rabbi in England. I'm only reading a selected portion. His article is entitled, "Why Atheism is Powerless Against the New Barbarians." Why atheism is powerless against the new barbarians. I quote, "In one respect, the new atheists are right. The threat to Western freedom in the 21st century is not from fascism or communism, but from a religious fundamentalism combining hatred of the other, the pursuit of power, and the contempt for human rights. But the idea that this can be defeated by individualism and relativism is naive almost beyond belief. Humanity has been here before. The precursors of today's scientific atheists were Epicurus in 3rd century BC Greece and Lucretius in 1st century Rome. These were two great civilizations on the brink of decline. Having lost their faith, they were no match for what philosopher Bertrand Russell calls nations less civilized than themselves, but not so destitute of social cohesions. The barbarians always win. They always do. The new barbarians are the fundamentalists who seek to impose a single truth on a plural world. Though many of them claim to be religious, they are actually devotees of the will to power. Defeating them will take the strongest possible defense of freedom. And strong societies are always moral societies. That does not mean that they need to be religious. It is just that, in the words of historian Will Durant, there is no significant example in history before our time of a society successfully maintaining moral life without the aid of religion. I have no desire to convert others to my religious beliefs. Jews don't do that sort of thing. Nor do I believe that you have to be religious to be moral. But Durant's point is the challenge of our time. Let me repeat Will Durant's quote. There is no significant example in history before our time of a society successfully maintaining moral life without the aid of religion. I have not yet found a secular ethic capable of sustaining, in the long run, a society of strong communities and families on one hand, altruism, virtue, self-restraint, honor, obligation, and trust on the other. A century after a civilization loses its soul, it loses its freedom also. That should concern all of us, believers and non-believers alike. End quote. Heavy stuff. But you see, the irony of this article is that often as Christians in North America, and I would extend that to the Northern Hemisphere, that as Christians we often think that it is the atheists who are our greatest opposition. It is usually in the month of August, before the start of school, that I will begin to receive mass emails about the evils of all those atheists who have forced public schools to remove the daily recitation of the Lord's Prayer. And then again the emails in November with the plight of Christians as the atheists try to sanitize the Christ out of Christmas. You see, it makes me giggle. Not really in a joyous way, but it makes me giggle when I get those emails. Because you see, that's the least of our problems. The point that Rabbi Sachs is making is that the fundamentalists of any of the world religions, it is they who are the greater threat to the destabilization of a society, a civilization. It is they, not the atheists. Atheism is powerless against the new barbarians. The fundamentalists, the new barbarians, are the ones who interpret the rules. They uphold the law. They judge the accused. They determine guilt. They carry out the sentencing. Rabbi Sachs uses the word barbarian to describe fundamentalism. And there is a word that is far more common these days, and we know it well: bullying. There is a commission right now in Saskatchewan addressing the issue of bullying in schools. By adulthood, we become very sophisticated in how we bully. Well, sometimes we are equally cruel and blunt. I talk to you a lot about who do you want to imitate. There are many people who I have as role models. I try to imitate them until the very best in them becomes a natural part of me. And at the end of the day, they and I want to imitate Jesus. In the Christian tradition, fundamentalists look a lot like Simon. Religious persons can be bullies. Their intent is not an evil one, because they truly believe the righteousness of God means that God cannot endure sinners. And a follower of God gains salvation by upholding the purity code with its separation of the elect from the sinners of the world. Don't hang out with rule breakers. They will drag you down with them. Technically, there is nothing wrong with Simon's behavior, and many would applaud him for upholding traditional values. Quite honestly,